Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and we've got ourselves a batch of Xbox news to go over. Now, I will be fully transparent. Some of this is quite late, but given the reviews I was doing, I had to bang out Guardians of the Galaxy and Age of Empires 4 in the same week. I wanted those reviews to go live, then the Halo gameplay. So this news is a little bit older, but absolutely with the amount of, again, leaks. I don't know what's going on here, but a lot of more leaks. On top of course, a big Day 1 Game Pass edition. I really wanted to just sit down and talk about all the cool things Xbox is doing behind the scenes that we're not supposed to know about and the stuff that they are revealing. And of course, the future of Game Pass is bright. But with that, if you're new here and you're looking for more Xbox news and information, there's plenty more on the way, especially with Halo coming up quite soon. Consider subscribing. Now let's get into a cloud-based MMO. And when you hear cloud-based, you may be like me as a physical game collector. Your alarms go off. You're like, oh my God, no, dear God, no. Well, it may not be all that bad. Let's read this article from Jeff Grubb and then we'll discuss. Xbox is working with developer Mainframe on cloud MMO with scaling complexity. Finnish studio Mainframe is working on a cloud-native, massively multiplayer online adventure for Xbox Game Studios. That's according to reporter Jez Corden on the Xbox 2 podcast, and that's something I've separately confirmed through independent sources. Mainframe's game goes by the working title Pax Day, and it's something that people at Team Xbox are excited about for multiple reasons. Cloud native here means that players can access the game through any device. The studio is also exploring potential gameplay mechanics that can only work in a game that exists primarily on a remote server. To explain what that means, Jeff writes, one key concept, however, is that mechanics scale in the terms of complexity. While anyone can do anything in Pax Day on any device, certain tasks will make more sense depending on where you're playing. So if you're playing on your phone at work, you can open up the game and quickly do some crafting or resource farming. Then when you get home to your PC or console, you can take on some of the more complex missions like raids. All right, I want to pause there because MMOs are like my kryptonite, right? Like I want to sniff out and try every single one of them. Some of them hit like a SWTOR, like an ESO, and some of them miss like Final Fantasy 14. I said it. I don't care. All right? I don't care. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to see another new MMO hit the market in all seriousness, because here's the thing. We saw what happened with New World. It comes out, it sets these insane records. It showcases the power of Twitch streamers and what happens when Amazon's going to launch a product. They can get all their streamers behind it, and it really bumps their game up the charts, for sure. Helps the sales out. There is a part of that. But also, when you look at the MMO market right now, outside of Final Fantasy 14 updates and the occasional ESO expansion, we are seeing that SWTOR is going to get a big expansion at the end of the year. But overall, it's kind of drying up. And we're going to start to see that MMO market heat up again, I think, over the next couple of years, especially with seeing how well New World did, where it hit at just the right time, where people were looking for something new. And I think people are going to continue to look for something new, something to add to that MMO portfolio. And I think Xbox will be striking at the right time with Game Pass involved and now cloud-based. Of course, with MMOs, sometimes the grind is really off-putting. So just like mobile games where you could just flip open your phone, get some of the grinding out of the way while you're doing something else, that's kind of how I think this game is going to really benefit, just based off what we're reading on paper. The idea of being able to craft, do your BS busy work while you're off doing something else on your phone, I think can be excellent. We'll see how it pans out, but I do see the potential in this idea. Key figures at Xbox are also excited about Pax Day because of its value in highlighting hurdles with cloud-based development. The hope among those at Microsoft is that Pax Day can create an opportunity to set up best practices for this kind of game, and then other studios can run that same playbook in the future. In particular, Xbox is hoping to use those lessons with Hideo Kojima's potential upcoming Xbox game. Kojima and Microsoft are still finalizing a deal, but the Xbox team is lining up resources to aid the renowned Japanese developer, such as in June when Microsoft hired Kim Swift to oversee cloud games and to work with Kojima on his project. So Microsoft is making a power play not only for cloud gaming, which I think in a lot of ways is the future, like it or not. Like when you look at Game Pass apps on TV, for example, I always like to bring that up as kind of a strong example of where the future will be with gaming. And there's some good things and some bad things with that. I think the bad's a little more obvious, but the good thing here is we can see how worlds are built. You look at something like Microsoft Flight Simulator, which makes use of the cloud, and you can see how they accurately recreate it through that data. So cloud doesn't necessarily always mean you have to be streaming online, you have to be downloading something, and it's going to be very very, very interesting to see how Xbox delivers that marketing message about a cloud-based MMO. Do they leave it to the side, or do they say, through the power of the cloud, we can do this, this, and that? I don't know. Just right now, in the current gaming audience, we don't know when this will be revealed, but right now in the current gaming audience, I feel like cloud is a red flag. And it's kind of like what happened where Xbox went all digital with the Xbox One, where they were heading in the right direction, just they were way too early. And again, it's all about timing. Still, they're also making a power play for Hideo Kojima, because it's good that they understand if you keep that man happy and you get him as a part of Xbox, even if he's working with PlayStation, you make him a part of Xbox and you put him on the stage and you show what you'll do for him, other Japanese developers will come to you. They know that. It's why they're going so hard for this. They know the value of Kojima being on their platform, and I think it's really smart. So we'll see how all of that pans out in the coming years. Now let's talk about a absolutely bonkers leak here. This one is about Project Xiaolin. So last week we talked about a series of projects that leaked. One of them was Project Belfry. The other was Project Xiaolin. Jeff Grubb and Jez Corden have teamed up together to give us the details on this one. By the way, this is what it's all about. This is what I was saying when I was leaking stuff for KOTOR Remake, and I was really peeved that some of my stuff was getting stolen or it was going down the same pipelines constantly, even though I had reported things before others. And a lot of people thought it's about ego, and it's like, no, I don't care. I have a lot of other ways I want to build my career. But here is a really strong example of what happens when we get a lot of big voices together, what can happen. So shout out to these two for working together and setting a good example of hopefully what we'll see more of in the future. Now let's read. Project Xiaolin. Xbox may be working on a Wu Tang themed action RPG led by Brass Lion Entertainment. I'd heard about a potential Wu Tang Clan themed game some months ago, but Jeff Grubb verified my information on his podcast, adding extra weight to the info I'd received. Funnily enough, a viewer of the podcast asked Grubb if the developer was Brass Lion Entertainment, which lined up directly with what I'd also heard. Brass Lion Entertainment is a relatively new studio comprised of industry vets. We believe that they're building an action RPG currently codenamed Xiaolin in partnership with Xbox. In details I revealed on my Xbox 2 podcast, I've heard that Xiaolin is a third-person melee-oriented RPG complete with 4-player co-op. The Game Pass 4-player co-op. We'll talk about that in a sec. The campaign is planned to run for a couple dozen hours, complete with a rich endgame comprised of seasonal content drops and other updates. You will be able to obtain loot, weapons, gear, and so on in both procedural endgame dungeons and more tailor-made events. Also, it appears that legendary hip-hop group Wu Tang Clan themselves will be heading up the game's soundtrack. Brass Lion co-founder Manveer Hare recently put up a tweet looking for the potential hires to work on an upcoming unannounced action RPG with an anime aesthetic, which we can see the tweet here. In case you missed it, Brass Lion is hiring a game designer to join our amazing and diverse team working on an unannounced action RPG with a dope anime aesthetic. If you care about making games with the best, check the job posting and apply today. Until we get an official announcement, there's every chance some of the plans for this game may change, of course. But it does appear that the project is going ahead. The design brief I received is a few months old now, but the Xiaolin codename appears in a far more recent document too, suggesting that the project is moving forward. Okay. I love the vibe of this. A Wu Tang Clan themed action RPG with anime aesthetics. Dude, yes. Here's why I love this. Shout out to a game no one talks about anymore that needs a collection or a remaster or re-release, something like that. Def Jam Vendetta, Def Jam, Fight for New York. These were top-tier fighting games where you'd play as the most popular rappers and beat the living hell out of each other. There was a surprising level of technicality, but the game had such a vibe. And this was during the EA big days where they were doing games like that, NFL Street, NBA Street, FIFA Street. And those street games, those street fighting games, they just hit so well in the early 2000s. So yeah, it may be a product of my time, quite frankly, but this, to me, just reading about it, screams that. And I never thought an era like that would come back, where we would see rap mixing with action RPGs with seemingly anime aesthetics, whatever that ends up looking like. It's just a garbage vomit of ideas that put together can actually make something really cool. Again, this sounds like that original Xbox, PS2, GameCube era type of game, which I think is cool. You combine that with co-op, and again, this is why I don't believe a word at times that Xbox says, where they go, yeah, we're not making games for Game Pass. Come on. and everything they're doing has co-op or some type of live element. And I'm not complaining, because if the game's good, the game's good. And if that's the vision of the developer, that's their vision. But there's clearly a lot of money to be made in Game Pass. And there's a reason why so many of them are multiplayer, co-op, online only, etc., etc. So I'm just saying, again, I continue to drive that point home that they were full of it when they said, yeah, we're not making games specifically for Game Pass. Look at their portfolio. There will be single-player games like an Avowed, but they're clearly driving home multiplayer games too. Last but certainly not least, GTA San Andreas coming to Xbox Game Pass with GTA 3 heading to PlayStation Now. In addition to the announcing of the release date for GTA The Trilogy Definitive Edition, Rockstar Games revealed on Friday that the new versions of GTA San Andreas and GTA 3 will get standalone releases that will be made available through subscription libraries on Xbox and PlayStation. GTA San Andreas upgraded version will launch day one on Game Pass on November 11th, while GTA 3's new version will come to PlayStation Now on December 7th. So Xbox spent the big bucks to get a Rockstar game, even if it's an old one, day one on Game Pass. This is interesting to see right after we saw they missed a target. Game Pass continues to grow, but instead of hitting around 48%, which they wanted to at Xbox, they hit about 37%. I said on Defining Duke, this is very good news. The reason for that is because Xbox is growing, they're making steps forward, they're progressing, but what's really important to emphasize here is they haven't grown enough. And so they're going to have to spend, and they're going to have to invest. And I already know for a fact, based off Jeff Grubb's reporting and what I've heard, Xbox has millions of dollars set aside to make Game Pass deals. They will start to spend. And I start looking at the game calendar. Look at how busy February is. And look at when Xbox starts to get their games rolling with Stalker 2 around April of next year. They need to get a big game in February, in my opinion. And I like that they're getting involved here, right? They're making these surprise additions to Game Pass, stitching together these deals. They had to be paying Rockstar a ton of money for this. The reason for that is because, yeah, it's an old GTA game, but it's GTA. People are hungry for new GTA content because everyone wants to know where GTA 6 is, and all we got is GTA Online. So honestly, this was a pretty significant get in the scheme of things for them. It's going to drive people to the service. It's also interesting because Rockstar took down the classic versions of the older GTA games, and while I think that the remasters look great, I don't think they look so great that it justified ripping down the classic versions of the game. I just think that was kind of silly, and it was clearly to drive people to buy this new product, which they absolutely will. Still, this is San Andreas arriving day one, whereas GTA 3 is arriving back on, I think, the day one for the physical release for PlayStation Now. So I find that timing very interesting, and it shows that Microsoft ponied up for sure. But we'll see how they continue to do so, because I think that's something you should really pay close attention to is as we get into early next year, I think they're going to make some bigger deals because they need to start spending some of that money they're sitting on with the way inflation's working, and it's why you're seeing a lot of acquisitions this year. So it'll be very interesting to see where said money is spent. With that, that's all the news in today's video. Again, I apologize if some of this is a little bit late, but I wanted to definitely talk about it because all of it is pretty significant. We're talking about major project leaks on top of a day one Game Pass edition and the future of that library. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you are thinking about this news in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons and all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. Love you all. Peace.